Now, before I go into the details of our financially fit products, wouldn't you agree that the wealthy are always looking for a profitable investment of some type, where they can get anything between 4 and 10% annually? Because if an investor is getting between 4 and 10% per year on their investment, they are extremely satisfied. There are many types of financial vehicles available that some of us are involved in. Let's have a look at them and compare them to our financial vehicle, and then you can decide which vehicle is better. The property industry is certainly a very popular type of investment, and a very, very common analogy or theory used in the property industry is something known as the Rule of 72. Now, the Rule of 72 is a simplified way to determine how long an investment would take to double given a fixed yield percentage. So let's say, for example, we were receiving something like 10% yield on our property. We divide 72 by 10, and this gives us a rough indication of how long it will take our property to double in value. So for example, around 7 years for your property to double in value if you were getting a 10% yield on your property. Now, let's say you were achieving something slightly less, something like 6%, around 12 years for your property to double in value. And this is a very common rule that we do here, that it does take about 7 to 10 to about 12 years for your property to double in value. And of course, there are certain factors that do distract us from nosing into the property industry, things like having a good credit file, and not all of us do these days. And if you have a bad one, it does take some time for you to get it up to scratch again. As well as location being a key factor in your property, these days you need large deposits, and not everyone can afford to have that large deposit, and it's becoming so much more expensive to live these days. We have a lot of expenses per month, and getting that large deposit is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And as well as increasing interest rates, it can certainly be difficult to sell your property, and of course, not easy to liquidate it quickly at the same time. So some factors here to consider in the property industry, and a bit of analogy of something known as the Rule of 72, which some of you viewers will be aware of, some of you not, and just take this information in because it's going to be really valuable later on in this video. Traditional businesses, extremely popular, but here's how they work. Again, we have this money and time graph, whereby in our traditional business, we make an investment. We have a setup cost at this point here, and from that point onwards, we are continuously getting out of pocket. You know, let's say, for example, we had a restaurant. You know, once we paid for the decorations, once we've paid for maintenance, once we've paid for the equipment, you know, the gas, the cooker, the freezer, all these expenses come out of our pocket, and we get to a stage where we start our traditional business, and again, we are continuously getting out of pocket. For about 3 to 5 years, we're not in profit. So about 3 to 5 years, we're not in profit, and most traditional business owners get to this point here where they're really struggling, not making any profit, and that really does stop them from going ahead. Now, traditional businesses are giving you a good return. However, you're limited again by this time factor, because when your restaurant is closed, you're not making any money. When your barbershop is closed, you're not making any money. Soon as you switch off the lights, there is no business to come in. So you're limited when you can actually receive money. And that's a very important factor. The other factor is a lot of individuals believe that they own businesses when actually the businesses own them, because they have to wake up early in the morning, they have to lift up the shutter, they have to switch off the alarm system, they have to do everything, they have to count the money, they have to be there in order for the business to operate properly. And even while the business is operating and you are in profit, you still got to pay for staff. Obviously, there's a setup cost that you've already paid for, stock, maintenance, insurance, and bills. So the bottom line is that you are continuously paying for things. There is continuously money coming out of your pocket, even when your business has started, even before the business has started. Very, very important facts to consider here. How investment works in the real world, ladies and gentlemen, is through hedge funds. Now, a hedge fund is an alternative investment vehicle available only to the accredited investors, such as institutions and individuals with significant assets. The big question is, what qualifies you to become an accredited investor? Because this sounds really appealing to me. An alternative investment vehicle. Okay, but what do I have to do to get involved? Well, you have to have an annual income of $200,000, a joint annual income of $300,000, and a net worth of $1 million. So, does the average person qualify? Because if I don't have this portfolio, if I don't have this on my CV, then I can't invest with a hedge fund. They won't even talk to me. If I went to a hedge fund with $1,000 or $10,000, they would simply laugh at me, because if you don't have the money, you can't play. So the hedge funds is reserved only for the extremely wealthy people, and the average person doesn't qualify. So we need a solution. So if you are an accredited investor and you want to invest in a hedge fund, let's say you qualify, which hedge fund do you go for? And what type of return on investment should you be expecting? Well, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, something you can see on your screen is something known as the S&P grouping, the S&P geometric average, which is a grouping of 500 stocks where the objective behind a hedge fund is to beat the S&P average. So if a hedge fund in the years 1928 and 2015 was getting a 9.5% return on investment per annum, then I invest with you because you are beating the average. Between the years 1966 and 2015, if you were getting 9.61% per annum return on investment in your hedge fund, absolutely fantastic. Between the years 2006 and 2015, 7.2% per annum was the average for your return of investment. So this figure here is very, very important. If you're a hedge fund and you're beating this, then as an accredited investor, I want to invest with you. So you found the perfect hedge fund. You found a hedge fund that is beating the 500 geometric average, and of course, you are an accredited investor because you have to be. So how does it all work? Well, hedge funds work with a typical cost concept known as 2 and 20, where 2 represents the 2% upfront managing fee, and 20 represents the 20% performance fee. So, for example, you have an investment of $1 million, 2% straight to the hedge fund. $20,000 goes straight to the hedge fund. This is before they've even made you a single dollar in profit. This is before anything happens, just for shaking their hand, just for talking to them, just for knocking on the door, 2% straight to the hedge fund. If they make you a profit of $100,000, 20% straight to the hedge fund again. 20% performance fee, $20,000 goes to the hedge fund. This is a typical cost concept. Now, this is not ideal. This is not an ideal situation, but it's how the hedge funds work. We're going to provide you with an absolute amazing solution because we need one. To summarize very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, for most people, these opportunities are out of their reach. They have lack of knowledge and expertise, lack of capital to get started, competition concerns, they don't qualify to invest in a financial vehicle, uncertainty and fear of failure, and most importantly, inability to borrow. So these financial vehicles are available to some individuals if they are accredited investors, however, not necessarily perfect for every individual. Now, Part 3 of our video shows you our financial vehicle and how anybody and everybody can get involved regardless of their situation, regardless of their lack of knowledge and expertise. So please tune in to part 3 of my video series.